Hello. It's Monday, the 24th of July, and it's your latest episode of the Uerman Murder Trial podcast. I want to say I am Glenn Fleetwood. I am a former criminal defense attorney and of 33 years. And I want to just say there have been so many developments in this case, but they're half developments. In other words, they are something's going on, but you don't know what it is. No, there's no time for Bob Dylan singing. Anyway, so here's what's going on with that case. First of all, I was the first person source anywhere that announced that he was on suicide watch in the jail. I said that the very day they arrested him. My sources told me, and as of 2 days later, the rest of the news media caught up with that and said, yes, he's been on suicide watch since the day Rex was arrested. There's a discrepancy about how many timeshares he has in Las Vegas. We know he has one, but it looks like he has a second one. Now, why would anybody need two timeshares in Las Vegas? And the answer is because if it gets too hot police-wise to do your killing down in Gigolo Beach, you go to Las Vegas and you do it there because it's very easy in Las Vegas to get wrapped up with a woman of the night, as they used to call them, a sex worker. So the police, Las Vegas police, are looking into each of his stays and his one or two. It looks like he actually had two and sold it, which makes him the smartest man in the world. He's the only person who made money on a timeshare. But it looks like Rex had two, and the Las Vegas police are tracking it down to see, hey, did this guy do a little killing while he was here? Also in New Jersey. New Jersey has a string of killings of sex workers, and I have to tell you, they are very, very similar. The MO is exactly the same. They're wrapped. Now, they're not wrapped in the same burlap, but you didn't think he was going to take the burlap that he uses it down in Florida and take it with him and use it to kill people up in New Jersey. Not Florida, in New York, sorry. So we have a killer who moves up to New Jersey and makes good with the material he has there. There's a lot of inferences being drawn from the fact that he has tons of burner phones. If he were not guilty, why would he need even one burner phone? Well, maybe he was cheating on his wife. But now, latest news on the wife. Developments are she has filed for divorce. It's one of the first times or only times I can think of where when the husband's arrested, the family doesn't jump up and say, no way, not my dad. There's no way he'd do that. That's crazy. He's not guilty. Boy, his family doesn't, not one of them has gone on TV to say, no, I don't think he did it. He's my dad. He's not that kind of a guy. Nobody says that. Now, what some people said in emails to me, which we'll get into that in a few minutes, but some people brought up, hasn't there been a blinking light, a foghorn, a lighthouse this whole time? Because you've got a guy who has a perfect view of where the four bodies were found, and he has something weird about him. People knew it. He was a businessman with an office in the nicest section of the business district of New York City. And he had a house that looks like it was inhabited by homeless people. Why would a man who specializes in architecture and construction. Why would he have a house with a caved-in front porch roof? And it looks almost like a joke, like that if somebody was sitting on the front porch when that roof caved in, they'd be dead. Why would he have that? Well, is that something? Now, when one of the women who took her kids trick-or-treating said, we would get to his block, and as soon as we got close to his house, we did not go further. We turned around and said, no, this place is creepy. Well, I believe her, but doesn't that mean that if she had said something, there might be fewer victims? Well, I don't know. But it does mean that she saw something. And it means that, and the lesson for you is that you should always pay attention to those hints, those messages you get from you don't know where, because that source that's sending you that stuff is smarter than you are. And if that source says there's something wrong here, there's creepiness in the land, in the grass, in the dirt, in the house, take their word for it and turn around and go the other way. And maybe next time you can even tell the police of your indicators going off, because they also put a lot of faith in them and believe that they are very good subliminal determinants of criminal behavior. So we've got those. Now we do have a site, nothing more than that, in North Carolina, where there have been some killings, again, of sex workers, and it looks like they might have been done in a manner that would be consistent with the manner of the murders that have been attributed to Rex Heuermann. We don't know anything yet, but here's one of the most interesting facts. Or is this a non-fact? I don't know. Is this... how does the saying go? The lack of evidence, or the missing evidence, is not proof of evidence missing. Well, anyway, whatever that saying is, the murders of the poor young women out in Long Island on the beach, the dates that the women were murdered were dates that Rex Heuermann's wife was out of town. So that's either an amazing coincidence, amazing, or it shows that he waited like a predator. He waited until his wife went to visit a relative or whatever, or maybe just to get away from him, or maybe to get a little bit estranged. And that's when he would do his killing. So that kind of complete coincidence is just, it's very hard. And of course, the defense attorney will jump up and say, well, it's just circumstantial. Circumstantial evidence is enough on which to base a conviction. So that's going to be some real trouble for him. Some people had problems wondering why they bothered to arrest him on the city street and thereby embarrass him, humiliate him. Why did they do it on the city street? Well, the answer to that is because they knew at the time they arrested him that he had permits for 92 weapons, 92 guns. And a person with 92 guns, presumably most of which are in their house, you don't want to go after that person when they're in their house. You've played into their hand. No. That person will pull out guns 1 through 60 and start using them to fend off the police. So you don't want to do that. So a person who's got 90 guns, 92 guns, and of course, as we know, when they got in there, they found that actually there's over 200, and it looks like the number was getting towards 300 when they quit counting. But we know that he's got that many of them just waiting to be used by him. So we cannot make this a stop we all rush into his house and take him. This is one where he has to be arrested on the street in New York. And that's what they did. That's not a common police tactic, but that's one I've seen about 50 times. Don't want to get into a circumstance where he's barricaded into the house. Now, of course, in England, and this is kind of interesting, in England, it's exactly the opposite. In England, you want to try your very best to chase him, scoot him, and get him into his house. Because once he's in his house, he's practically in a cage. You got him. So in England, they do chase them into the house and let them run into the house and lock the door and say, okay, thank you. You've just set yourself up for captivity, and this will make our job that much easier. So remember that England actually, and this was one of the sad things for me, because I remember that this was a sign that the U.S. was losing its place as the leader of the world in science and those kind of discoveries, medical discoveries. England was the place that had the first resolution of a murder case or of any criminal case by use of DNA. Yes, it was a couple of professors at a university in England who were looking at DNA, and they didn't discover DNA, but they were saying, well, this is a fantastic, look at this thing. And so everybody's got their own? You mean mine doesn't look anything like yours, and yours doesn't look anything like your wife's? And wow, that's amazing. And then they realized at that time they had a series of rape and murders going on in a small town, and they had not been able to get any sort of break on the case, and they were trying over and over to find out, who's doing it. Why are these young girls that are walking this seemingly innocent path? It's just a path that winds around by the high school, by the playing field, and goes across the street and lets them off into the housing district or into the houses there. Why is that path so deadly? Why can they not figure out who did it? And the police in that case had done what I think is a great idea. The police had put out a notice saying, we want every man in this community to come to the courthouse next Monday, and every man is going to have his blood taken or whatever, and we're going to take your DNA, and we're going to find the DNA that matches the rape of these young victims. And they said, therefore, we have one of two things is going to happen. Either somebody is going to come in and give their DNA, and we will match it, and we'll know who did the rape and murder of these young women, or we're going to get a story from some man saying, I don't want to have my DNA taken. Who knows what they could do with it? They could probably look for diseases and tell people, oh, he's got so-and-so. And, well, then we know that that's our criminal. So the disappointment was, in the case in England, the whole town gave DNA samples of one sort or another, and there was no match. No match. And the police and the university were stunned because they had considered this a sure thing. This thing's going to show who did it. No, there's no doubt. It has to be somebody who lives in the community. If you saw a stranger in this town where everybody knows everybody driving over to the field, somebody would have noticed it. They said it's got to be somebody who lives there who doesn't call attention when he's driving through the neighborhood. And of course it has to be a man. And it has to be between a certain age. Well, they came up with nothing. And what happened? Finally some guy said, well, My friend came to me and he said that he couldn't give a sample because of some stupid excuse. So he said that if he paid me so and so, I would go over and give his sample. So I went over and I gave them a sample in his name. And the police said, "You did? Well, you're under arrest." And who is this person that you went and gave your DNA for? And he said, "It was my buddy Colin Pitchfork." No, that's not a made-up name. That's his real name. And they said, "Colin Pitchfork, we know that name." And he said, "Yeah, he's the one who told me that if I went and gave my DNA instead, he would do something for me." I don't remember what the consideration was. And they went over to Colin Pitchfork, and he had slightly barricaded himself into his house, but they got him out right away. And they gave him a DNA test while he sat in jail. And when the DNA came back, that was the first crime solved by DNA. So that's a very big consideration in the Uerman case. There's different DNA. One of the things they're looking at is that the hairs, because there is female hair in 3 of the 4 bodies to which he is being looked at as a suspect, there is absolutely female hair, which could mean nothing. It could mean that, and I don't think they've tested yet, they have not ruled out that it's his wife's hair. It could just be transfer from where he lives. But it could also mean, unbelievably, that he had a female accomplice. A female accomplice. Boy, that would be a long shot. That is something that I would not guess, but it is absolutely possible and consistent with the female hairs that they have found on the body right now. So those are the developments in the case. Other than that, there's nothing big happening in the way that there's usually nothing very big happening at this time, other than the stations, once they catch up to Fleetwood, do like to make a big deal about he's on suicide watch. We all remember Jeffrey Epstein and how effective that is. Well, I want to thank you for listening. I know you've heard this from absolutely everyone, but please, if you will just give me a thumbs up on down there on the button that says, do you like this? If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe so that I can just send you a little note saying, hey, it's Monday, there's another new episodic, and ring the bell. And if you ring the bell, not only will that increase my visibility to other people who might have an interest in the Uerman murder trial, which is what this podcast is all about, but it will also get you notification when there's a new episode out. You'll be the first to know. And there will be a time lag between when people like you who have rung the bell get the immediate urgent copy and when the regular public get it, which will be either hours or possibly even a day later. But as for right now, it's the same. So I just want to thank you for listening. Please watch yourself in the heat. No matter where you go, take bottled water with you, even though you're sure you won't need it. You're just driving here and there and someplace where you won't need it. Don't drive anywhere. Don't get in your car without bottled water that is cold, so that, remember, if it's been left in your car, it's useless, because if you try to drink it, it's too hot to drink. So put cold bottled water so that you're safe when you drive around. And remember, the most important rule on that topic of survival is that if something happens, I hope it doesn't, but your car breaks down or something and you need to start drinking out of that survival water, which is a term I just made up, remember, your body is the best thermos there is. So your body will determine exactly how much water you need to use. So drink the water down Your body will only take up what it needs to keep going, and it'll store the rest until you need it. And it makes a much better system than saying, okay, I can only take 2 sips today, and then in an hour, I'll take another 1 sip, because there have been many times where they have found dead people with water in their canteen, where the people had tried to just eke out a survival on too small of a ration. So you don't want to do that. You want to give yourself the water that you need to drink. And even though it seems like, well, I'm drinking all my water down, no, your body will do the perfect job of just using the amount it needs to survive and storing the rest for when it needs it. And with that, I will see you next week. Thank you for listening.